Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Entrepreneurial Mindset, the entrepreneur and his team. Now, since we know that sometimes it's necessary to have partners on board or team members, we differentiated those in the previous chapter. Now it's important to get to know how to build your team. Richard Branson put it really easy, and he said, it's all about finding and hiring people smarter than you. Well, this is the way he was taking people on board and probably also building his teams. But what is really the secret of team building? And I'm not saying it's a real easy task. I think it's one of the difficult tasks when you start your venture. Because when you look at teams and we look at, first of all, start looking at yourself, you're probably lacking skills. And this is fairly easy to determine. You're a tech guy, you're a marketing guy, you have a certain background, you had some mastery experience and so on. You can write it down on paper, you can look what your company needs, and then you probably see it's lacking skills. Those skills are easier to determine, and you can say, okay, I need different skills on board and they're really essential for my business, so I need team members with those certain skills. The second aspect which comes into place, and this is the first aspect, the second which comes into place is personality. And we made a couple of studies and we were able to see that personalities is as important and might be also more important than skills. So what is your own personality? If you are a more introvert, you might be really good in working on technology solution in your room, but going outside and selling those solutions might be harder for you than for others, or the opposite. And ask yourself, if you have to cold call someone, is it really easy for you just to take up the phone and cold call that person? Or do you need minutes and walk around the phone and make notes what you want to say and so on? Some people do not have a hard time cold calling people. You just take up the phone and call them. Others have a hard time. So maybe the one is a sales guy, the other is not. And this is what comes closer to personalities. So what you secondly need on board is different personalities, because some of the tasks fit to certain personalities a little better than other tasks, which also leads to something which is difficult to manage. It leads to so-called heterogeneity. Because heterogeneity in teams might have big advantages, as I said before, then someone can find technical solution because he has a personality for that, and someone else might sell that. That's cool, but it could also lead to conflicts, for example. So these are the disadvantages of heterogeneity in teams. And it starts with the language people use. If people come from different settings, they probably learned a different language. If you come from a technology setting and you studied mechanical engineering, you use words in a different way than business people or lawyers do that. And if you have those different team members, you have to get along with a different language, and sometimes one doesn't understand the other. And you have to have some kind of meta-communication, bring everyone the same understanding. That's basically what meta-communication is. If you don't do that, it might lead to conflicts and might lead to effective conflicts, which are the bad form of conflicts, because this is where people really start quarreling with each other and teams fall apart. It's at least time-consuming. And it's hard to find clarity on what the different people want. So it might have dysfunctional effects, the heterogeneity. However, on the other hand, as I said before, it has advantages because you have more knowledge on board. You might find better solutions because you have the personalities for the task, plus you have the skills. So in general, team building is first of all about skills and personality. You have to add the skills and you have to add the personalities. I like to elaborate on the personalities later on a little bit. Skills is fairly easy. Look at the essential skills you need for the business, look at your skills, and look at what's lacking. So this is how you determine the input for a team. The team composition. You look at the adequate skills, and you look at what's necessary there. You can look at the structure, you can also look at the roles of the people, you can look at the organizational structure, and so on. That's the first step into building your team, is building the input. Second step, and that's really important if the team should work together, and you can elaborate this a lot further because there's a lot of literature to that, is designing the process of working together. First of all, you have to have some kind of open communication, especially if you come from different backgrounds, have a different understanding. I said that before, understanding of mechanical engineer versus business administration versus law. They have different words. So you have to talk about the wording, that everyone understands the other in the best way possible. You have to think about what conflicts could come up because of our heterogeneous personalities, for example. And this is a second aspect which is really important. And you probably need, in general, you need more time for discussion in the early days if you come together as a team. So if you want to answer one question, should you start your company with friends or with strangers? With strangers, you need a lot more time in the process. With friends, you probably need less time. However, ask yourself the question, are friends really the best composition for your team? So there's always various arguments to that. And then it all depends on what you have to do as a team. How complex are the tasks? How long are you doing that? So at the very beginning, it's a lot more important to monitor the process of a heterogeneous team and working together than at the very end. And then the team ideally has a positive output, which is performance of the company, but might also be happiness of the entrepreneurs. Now, we had a couple aspects of building a team. I said there's a lot more to that, but as an easy understanding, you can keep in mind you need to be honest to yourself, and then you reflect on your own skills and your own personality, and you look what's lacking. What are the skills do you have to have on your team, and what personality types? And when it comes to personality, it's really a difficult task, and most entrepreneurs really don't look at personalities. But what you can do is you can find an easy way into doing that. If you, for example, and I think there's a copyright on that, Belbin's personality test. Belbin was someone who looked at a lot of management teams and tried to find personalities in management teams and composition of personalities, and tried to find out whether a certain composition in a management team leads to a higher success than a different composition. Now, we took that Belbin test and we used that Belbin test in order to look at entrepreneurs, entrepreneurial teams, and try to understand what is the composition of an entrepreneurial team which might be successful. We started looking at the personality roles Belbin found out, and these are altogether those 9 roles, and if you want, you can structure those 9 roles into 3 categories. And these 3 categories is the action category, the people category, and the cerebral category. So what you basically find if you give this personality test to someone, and it's a self-test, so it's easy to apply, although the results might be really discussable if you look at that from a psychological standpoint. But if you do that, people have roles, and those roles people have are more important and others are less important, or they follow a certain role more than they follow another role. And it's not necessary that you follow only one role. You might have incorporated 2 or more roles in yourself. So what does it mean? If you look at the team, look at the team members, they have certain roles, and certain roles are higher and others are lower. So that means if you make it really simple, you can say there are action-oriented team members, there are people-oriented team members, and there are cerebral-oriented team members. And if we start on the right side with those team members, so specialists, for example, they try to work on solutions. This is their personality. This is what they like to do. And if you give them a task, they work on that, and they can work on that for days and months until they come out with a new solution. And that's what they love to do. And they're really creative in finding something new. And if you add an action-oriented personality to that, an implementer, a completer, a finisher, that's in most cases the perfect person to sell then, this complex solution. These people don't ask if something could go wrong, they just go and sell something. But if you combine those people, those 2 personalities, the action-oriented personality, they change their minds very, very often. The cerebral-oriented personality wants to stick to something and work on that a lot more than the action-oriented sticks to that. So you can easily see it leads to conflict between those 2. So sometimes you might need people-oriented roles in a management team, that these people-oriented roles can stand between the cerebral and the action-oriented in order to make those 2 roles agree on what the company really should do in the future. If you sum that up, you see gathering the personality is really difficult. However, what we were able to see is when teams have incorporated different roles, they are more successful than other teams who have incorporated different roles. So personality obviously plays a role. So what you should do is, if you build your own team, ask for the necessary skills, but also try to understand at least your own personality. Are you really a sales guy, or don't you like to cold call people? And if this is the case, it might be more important to have someone who likes to cold call than to have someone with big marketing expertise just from books. So this is how personality comes in. I know it's a real difficult task. I know it's really difficult to come up to a potential team member and say, show me a personality test. This is why getting to know someone earlier on before you start a business might make a lot of sense. As Steve Jobs did with his partner Steve Wozniak, he knew it basically from childhood, or from high school at least. But besides skills, personality plays a big role. Leads to heterogeneity, and you have to lead that heterogeneity into a positive process in order to be successful. What are easy steps to build a team? Well, check necessity of team building, which is what are the crucial skills for your company? Do you have them all? In most big tech companies, you can't answer that with a yes. If you have low-tech, small business, you might have all the skills. So the second step is check for the professional heterogeneity. So what are the necessary skills for the project success? And then check for the personal heterogeneity. What are the different personalities you need on board? And if you've built your teams, this is until you build your team. So this is the input level. Then you start splitting the tasks according to personality and skills, and you start team building activities, like you bring the team together and let them work together in order to find the roles, in order to find the right communication, in order to avoid conflicts. And don't forget one thing, and this is really important: discuss interest and establish trust. Because even if people don't understand each other, If they trust themselves, then it's no problem. But if they don't trust themselves, then it takes a lot more time to build up an understanding. And especially when it comes to the question, why do you do the company, then it's really important to understand also the other's interests. And if you do that, then you can avoid so-called effective conflicts which negatively influence your success of the company. So if you follow these steps, then you might be able to build your team in a successful way. Also, and I said that before, I think this is the real difficult task, and most entrepreneurs don't do that in that way. Also, the human capital aspect is most important for the success of companies. There are many, many books on that. There are many, many sources, and some of the sources also make really easy contributions to this topic, as this one here. How are successful entrepreneurial teams built and how do they work together? It's cohesion. If the company wins, everyone wins. So that brings these people together. It's integrity. Do what is good for the company and not only what is good for yourself. This is what brings teams apart. Commitment to the long haul. So not just making a company because you want to be rich in half a year. This is not going to work out probably. Teamwork, high performance breeds strong friendships. So if you really work as a team together, it also ties you together. Then you should have some harvest mindset, because especially if you use equity capital, you look at capital gain and not a monthly paycheck. Sharing of the harvest. So if you're a real team, you're able to share. Commitment to value creation, make the pie bigger for everyone, and it's a real good team. Equal inequality. If there is some inequality, try to equal that, but if the inequality is too big, don't try that, because then it's fair if there's inequality. And fairness, shares and rewards might need to be adjusted over time. Feel free to do that, but this is a task which goes a lot later on in the process of working together. However, that was only a couple minutes on building your entrepreneurial team. It's a big task, it's a difficult task for an entrepreneur, but there are some important aspects, some important hints for you in order to do that, and that brings you to start your venture in a more successful way.